Third regular session of the 60th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Pia Cayetano will lead the chamber in prayer, which prayer will be read by Senator Aquilino Pimentel III.
Our Father, who art in heaven, thy kingdom come. We realize that beyond our human governments, we have someone whose power is absolute and whose rule is characterized by righteousness and benevolence. Let your kingdom come upon our country, that we might see both righteousness and benevolence in abundance and enjoyed by our people. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We have tried to pattern our laws after your laws, which are benevolent in every aspect. Let your will be demonstrated in the absolutely fair application of justice. Let your will be revealed in the way we look after the welfare of the people of this nation. It is our desire that a semblance of the heavenly peace and harmony will become our experience while in this world. Help us to become your instruments in helping this nation enjoy the blessings of your will. We ask for the wisdom that comes from your throne to enable us to do what is right in our personal lives and as servants of the people. Thank you for the continuing assurance of your presence, protection, and provisions. We ask all this in the name of Jesus our Savior and Lord. Amen.
Amen. How many? The Secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter, Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito, Enrile Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Unasan, Lapid, Legarda, Marcos, Usmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Rilon.
Any objection? I'm sorry. With 13, I'm sorry? All right. With 15 senators present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. The majority leader is recognized.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the fourth session, August 3, 2015, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none, the reading of the journal is dispensed with, and the same is hereby approved.
Before we proceed with the reference of business, Mr. President, I'd like to recognize the members of the Rotary Club of Hingoog City, led by their President Manolo Torres. He's here.
The members of the Rotary Club of Hingoog City is hereby recognized. Their presence is made of record. Welcome to the Senate.
Mr. President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
The Secretary, before we direct the Secretary to read the reference of business, we noticed that in yesterday's proceedings, we did not reflect on the record the election of Senator Chis Escudero as chair of the Committee on Environment. Or is it here there? I'm sorry. I withdraw that manifestation. It is here. All right. The Secretary will read the reference of business.
Bills on first reading. Senate Bill number 2861, an act establishing a legacy fund to support, improve, and sustain higher education institutions during the transition period of the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, introduced by Senator Ligarda.
Committees on Education, Arts and Culture, and Finance.
2862, an act providing for an official Filipino version of the Philippine Constitution and its translation into major regional languages, Arabic and Spanish, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes, by Senator Ligarda.
Committee on Constitutional Amendments, Revision of Codes, Education, Arts and Culture, Finance.
2863, an act requiring certain financial institutions to post transaction fees for each automated teller machine transaction and restricting transaction fees for automated teller machines by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Financial institutions and creditors.
2864, an act creating the position/rank of the fire truck officer, FTO, in the Bureau of Fire Protection by Senator Trillanes IV.
Public order and dangerous drugs. Civil service, government organization, professional regulation, and finance.
2865, an act to include dentists in the plantilla of position in the Department of Health and in all public institutions, and to upgrade the ranks and salary scales or levels of all government dentists from salary grade 16 to 22 in the Salary Standardization Law by Senator Grace Poe.
Health and demography, civil service, government organization, professional regulation, and finance.
2866, an act to further strengthen the reliability of air transportation for the safety of Filipino passengers, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 9497, otherwise known as the Civil Aviation Authority Act of 2008 by Senator Grace Poe.
Public services and finance.
2867, an act providing for the construction of a multi-purpose gym in all municipalities and cities to serve as evacuation center during times of calamity or disaster, and appropriating funds therefore by Senator Recto.
Public works and finance.
2868, an act prohibiting hazing and regulating other forms of initiation rights of fraternities, sororities, and other organizations, and providing penalties for violation thereof, repealing for the purpose Republic Act number 8049 by Senator Joseph Victor Ejercito.
Public order, dangerous drugs, justice, and human rights.
Resolutions. Proposed Senate Resolution number 1444, directing the Senate Committees on Agriculture and Food and other relevant committees of the Senate to investigate and aid of legislation the alleged proliferation of synthetic rice, which contains plasticizers that may adversely affect public safety and health, by Senator Ligarda.
Agriculture and food, trade and commerce, entrepreneurship.
1445, honoring and commending the outstanding Philippine soldiers, TOPS, of 2015, awarded by the Metrobank Foundation, Inc., and the Rotary Club of Makati Metro by Senator Ligarda.
Rules.
1446, directing the Senate Committees on Environment and Natural Resources and Foreign Affairs to look into the entry and eventual dumping at the country's sanitary landfill of waste illegally shipped from Canada, with the end view of strengthening safeguards to prevent the future importation of waste into the country by Senator Ligarda.
Committees on Environment and Natural Resources, Foreign Relations.
1447, commending the work of Lorenzo Lucero Mata for his dedication as a public school teacher and his contribution to the preservation of Philippine history through the cultural documentation of heritage town of San Vicente and Ilocos Sur by Senator Ligarda.
Rules.
1448, directing the Committees on Public Information and Mass Media and on Ways and Means to conduct an inquiry and look into an aid of legislation, the distribution of amusement tax collected by the local government units in Metro Manila and in such other places where all or any film festival entry is exhibited simultaneously during the film festival period starting from 2002 up to the present by Senator Soto III.
Public information, mass media, ways and means.
1449, directing the appropriate Senate committee to investigate in aid of legislation the dumping of Canadian trusts into the country and institute measures to protect public health and environment against toxic and hazardous materials and ensure environmentally sound waste management by Senator Marcos Jr.
Environment and Natural Resources, Foreign Relations.
1450, directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the conflicting data of the Bureau of the Treasury and the Department of Energy on revenues collected from the Malampaya National Gas Project, with the end in view of reconciling all books of accounts pertaining to the Malampaya Fund and collecting the correct royalties due to the Philippine government by Senator Recto.
Ways and Means, Energy.
1451, urging the Senate Committee on Public Services to conduct an assessment in aid of legislation on the online-enabled transportation services, including but not limited to Uber, Easy Cars, and Grab Car as a new mode of transportation in Metro Manila and other urban areas, its safety and reliability, and its integration into the country's public transportation network by Senator Grace Poe.
Public Services.
1452, directing the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Food to investigate in aid of legislation the current state of the ACF scholarship program in light of reports and complaints that the students who applied for scholarship grants in school year 2014 to 2015 have not been paid their scholarship entitlements by government by Senator Cynthia A. Villar.
Agriculture and Food.
1453, urging the National Telecommunications Commission, NTC, to act swiftly on the SIM swap scam in cases of identity theft involving postpaid mobile phone subscribers, jeopardizing sensitive and confidential banking information and posing a threat to the banking telecommunications industry for the purpose of protecting the public, by Senator Grace Poe.
Public Services.
1454, urging the Senate Committee on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies to conduct an omnibus inquiry and assessment in aid of legislation on relevant securities and investment laws, regulations, and measures with the end goal of introducing remedial amendments to better battle deceptive investment schemes and stop insidious networking scams, by Senator Grace Poe.
Banks, Financial Institutions, Currencies, Trade and Commerce, and Entrepreneurship.
Committee reports. Committee report number 190, submitted jointly by the Committees on Banks, Financial Institutions, and Currencies, and Finance, on House Bill number 2360, introduced by Representative Leonardia et al., entitled An Act Establishing a Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, office in Bacolod City, and appropriating funds, therefore recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Osmeño III.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 191, submitted by the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, on House Bill number 45, introduced by Representatives Rodriguez R. and Rodriguez M., entitled An Act Declaring the City of Cagayan de Oro a Mining-Free Zone, recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Ligarda.
Calendar for ordinary business.
192, submitted by the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, on House Bill number 670, introduced by Representative Sarmiento C., entitled An Act Declaring the Province of Catanduanes a Mining-Free Zone, recommending its approval with amendments, by sponsor, Senator Ligarda.
Calendar for ordinary business.
139, submitted by the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, on House Bill number 3667, introduced by Representatives Padilla and Matugas, An Act Declaring the Province of Nueva Vizcaya a mining-free zone and providing penalties for violations thereof, recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Ligarda.
Calendar for ordinary business.
194, submitted by the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, on House Bill number 3780, introduced by Representatives Ibardone and Matugas, An Act Declaring the Province of Eastern Samar a mining-free zone and providing penalties for violations thereof, recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Ligarda.
Calendar for ordinary business.
195, submitted by the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, on House Bill number 4363, introduced by Representatives Ramos and Matugas, entitled An Act Declaring the 2nd District of Sorsogon a mining-free zone and providing penalties for violations thereof, recommending its approval with amendments, by Senator Ligarda.
Calendar for ordinary business.
196, submitted by the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, on House Bill number 5261, introduced by Representatives Espina and Matugas, An Act Declaring the Province of Biliran a mining-free zone, recommending its approval with amendments, taking into consideration Senate Bill number 2676, by Senator Ligarda.
Calendar for ordinary business.
197, submitted by Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, on House Bill number 5262, introduced by Representative Ungab and et al., entitled An Act Declaring the City of Davao a mining-free zone, recommending its approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Ligarda.
Calendar for ordinary business.
Committee report number 198, submitted by Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, on House Bill number 5260, introduced by Representative Bayulago et al., entitled An Act Declaring the Province of Nueva Ecija a mining-free zone, recommending the approval with amendments. Sponsor, Senator Ligarda.
Ordinary business. The Chair declares a 1-minute suspension to allow our visitors to sit down and observe courtesy to the Chamber by keeping quiet for a while. Session is resumed.
Mr. President, the new chairperson of the Committee on Finance has requested that the names of the vice chairpersons for the Committee of Finance be manifested on the floor.
Please proceed.
We have the following: Senators Sergio Osmeña III, Ralph Recto, Chupisto Gingoana III, Cynthia Villar, Sani Angara, Paulo Benigno Aquino.
So noted.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2762, under Committee Report number 140. This is the bill on strategic trade management, Mr. President.
Strategic. This is committee report number.
140.
The committee report that I'm looking at refers to weapons of mass destruction.
So can we have a minute suspension, Mr.
1
President,
minute
to reconcile?
suspension, please.
Pero, we are ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
Committee report number 140, I used the short title of the report, but let me, for the record, now read the complete title for Senate Bill number 2762 under Committee Report number 140.
Please proceed, sir.
It is an act preventing the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction by managing the trade in strategic goods, the provision of related services, and for other purposes.
Noted in order.
So, Mr. President, the parliamentary status is the sponsor had delivered his sponsorship speech last May 12. I thus move that we open the period of interpellations.
So, in order.
And I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Trillanes.
Senator Trillanes is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Soto wishes to be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Soto is recognized.
Strategic.
Okay na, ha?
Mr. President, thank you.
Senator Soto is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Will the distinguished gentleman yield to some questions for my clarification?
Yes, Mr. President, for the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can start if the session at my back will stop, Mr. President. I cannot hear myself.
So, may we request that the session at the back of the Minority Leader
I move to adjourn the session here in the back. Thank you, Mr. President. I will have to admit, Mr. President, that I need enlightenment in this bill, Your Honor. I'm somewhat confused. Sa title, na confused na ako ng konti. So there is this short title, Strategic Trade Management Act, which is yung pong main title of the bill is an act preventing the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction by managing the trade in strategic goods, the provision of related services, and for other purposes. So, with your indulgence, Mr. President, let me slowly try to get into the meat of this bill. As I said, I have to admit I'm a bit confused. So, let me start by asking, what are the current problems or issues that prompted the filing of this bill, Mr. President?
Thank you for that very basic question by the Minority Leader, just to enlighten the members of this body. Mr. President, we filed this bill primarily to fulfill our international commitments and obligation, particularly in the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1540 that intends to prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their means of delivery. The bill seeks to take and enforce effective measures to establish domestic controls to prevent the proliferation of WMDs and their means of delivery, and to maintain international peace and security, and promote economic growth by facilitating trade and investment through responsible management of strategic goods and the provision of related services. There is also the National Strategic Goods List to describe with specificity the strategic goods subject to authorization, and the bill shall also serve as the legal framework to which our international commitments on issues of non-proliferation are addressed. And such a legal framework will also win over high-end product investors to do business in the country, because they will be confident that the Philippines is aligned with other countries that are against the proliferation of WMDs and their means of delivery, since many of the products of high-end investors involve regulated products, strategic goods, and dual-use goods, Mr. President.
I will have to ask, Mr. President. Thank you for that, for the answer. We understand the issue on international commitment likewise. But I will have to ask, what is the difference between weapons of mass destruction and strategic goods? How are they related to each other? I believe that the bill's purpose, as you just mentioned, is to prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction by managing the trade in strategic goods. So are we saying that strategic goods are precursors or ingredients of the weapons of mass destruction? Ganun po ba yung dating nun?
Yes, most definitely, Mr. President. But just to state for the record the technical definition, weapons of mass destruction refer to any destructive device or weapon that is designed or intended to cause death or serious bodily injury through the release, dissemination, or impact of toxic or poisonous chemicals or their precursors, any weapon involving biological agent, toxin, or vector, or any weapon that is designed to release radiation, radioactivity at a level dangerous to human life. This includes A. Nuclear and radiological explosive devices and their major subsystems. B. Chemicals covered by Schedule 1, 2, and 3 of the Chemical Weapons Convention. And C. Biological agents and biologically derived substances specifically developed, configured, adapted, or modified for the purpose of increasing their capability to produce casualties in human or livestock, degrade equipment, or damage crops. Strategic goods, on the other hand, refer to military goods, dual-use goods, and even unlisted goods that should be regulated for reasons of national security, foreign policy, anti-terrorism, crime control, or public safety. So, yes, these strategic goods in certain quantities can be used in the production of WMDs, Mr. President. And as an example, what's this? Triggered spark gaps.
I was about to ask for that. May we have specifics on the examples? What is what can we call strategic goods, Mr. President?
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
We wanted to ask for examples.
Yes.
Specific examples of strategic goods.
Strategic spark gaps. Like that? As an example, Mr. President, this triggered spark gaps have medical use and are listed as specific equipment during transport, and can also be used in the production of nuclear-related equipment. And microchips that are used in computers can also be used as part of the guidance mechanism for nuclear weapons, Mr. President.
You mentioned earlier National Strategic Goods List. This is the NSGL, found in your bill. No?
Yes.
Now, letter T of your bill says strategic goods, and this is the definition that you read, refers to goods listed in the NSGL under Annex 1, military goods, Annex 2, dual-use goods, Annex 3, etc., etc. Now, my question is this. In your bill, it is stated, if I'm right, if I read it right, it will be formulated, the NSGL will be formulated by the National Security Council, Strategic Trade Management Committee, NSC-STM-COM. However, in Section 10 of the bill, it states that it shall be the responsibility of any person subject of this act to ascertain whether certain goods fall under the NSGL or is subject to authorization under this act. Gusto ko pong maintindihan ito. Why are we giving them the liberty to ascertain or determine whether their goods are included in the NSGL when we are saying that the NSGL will be formulated by the National Security Council? Hindi po ba dapat the sole power of the National Security Council sa kanila lang, to which goods are covered by the NSGL? Will you please clarify on this, Mr. President, so that I can follow, Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. President. While the NSC-STM-COM has the power to establish and update the NSGL, the same shall be in conformity with the international commitments and non-proliferation obligations pursuant to bilateral and multilateral treaties, international conventions, and international non-proliferation regimes. And I believe that the persons involved in the trade of strategic goods should have the responsibility to submit themselves and their products for licensing and authorization. And the NSGL will be published, Mr. President. The STMO, as executive and technical arm of the NSC, STM-COM, will also be there to ensure and operate end-user controls and establish compliance checks and exercise authority to enter premises for such purposes, Mr. President.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, Mr. President. Let me focus on this phrase in the bill. Responsibility of any person subject of this act to ascertain. Sino po ba yung any person subject of this act? Para lang malinawan ko.
Basically, those subject of this act would be those importing and exporting goods, Mr. President.
Section 10, parang nabibigyan sila ng power to ascertain Samantalang ang gusto natin, ang gusto originally nung bill ninyo is to this National Security Council lang ang pwede. No, so at the proper time, perhaps we can amend this or reward so that we are not giving the impression that we're giving the person subject to this act or subject of this act na pwede siya mag-determine. Hindi po ba,
Yes, Mr. President, as always, we would welcome the amendments of the minority leader to further improve and clarify the ambiguous provisions of this bill, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Let me move on now to part of what we defined, or you defined, Mr. President, in the strategic goods. The bill covers strategic goods as listed in the National Strategic Goods List, NSGL. All right, comprised of military goods, dual-use goods and nationally controlled use goods. Only military goods, however, have definitions in Section 5 doon sa inyong definition of terms. So how are dual-use goods and nationally controlled use goods defined, Mr. President? Ano ba ang definition po naman yan?
Mr. President, the dual-use goods are defined under Section 5,
Section 5.
Paragraph T, line 24, while the nationally controlled use goods is defined under Section 4 from lines 24 to 26.
Anong page po ba nung bill natin? Page 5?
Page 5.
Saan? Military goods. Will you help me, Mr. President?
Okay.
Where is the definition of dual-use goods?
Okay.
Page, ano to?
In page 5, line,
Page five.
line 24. And,
Line 24.
Yes. And I can
Refers
read...
to items. Yes. Please, please.
Just to read for the record, dual-use goods refers to items, software, and technology which can be used for both civil and military end use
Tapos,
or in connection with development, production, handling, operation, maintenance,
Yeah.
storage, detection, identification, or dissemination of weapons of mass destruction or their means of delivery. These goods are listed in Annex 2 of the NSGL, Mr. President.
all right. And then yung nationally controlled use goods, as you said, it's in Section 4. Ano?
Yes.
My point, Mr. President, if you will not mind, is that let us give their own definition in a separate paragraph. Ano? Para imbis na nakapasok lang dito sa paragraph ng strategic goods, let's place it in another line or another paragraph. Para malinaw po. At the proper time, Mr.
Yes,
President.
Mr. President. Yes,
All
Mr.
right.
President, we welcome the proposed amendments of the Minority Leader.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Again, for enlightenment, if the purpose of this bill is to manage the trade in strategic goods, what kinds of trade are covered by this act? Section 3 of your bill kasi mentions export, import, transit, or transshipment, and re-export of strategic goods. Ano po ba mga trade ang base natin dito? Kasi based on your definition of terms, yung trade of strategic goods within the Philippines is not regulated. Does this bill then cover trade within the Philippines? For example, Manila to Cebu, Cebu to Zamboanga? Kasama po ba yun? Yun ko po gusto naming malinawan tayo.
Yes, Mr. President. While this measure is an export-oriented measure, and we are already complying with the UNSCR 1540, the example mentioned by the Minority Leader is covered by this bill, Mr. President.
W. I am looking at letter W, Mr. President. W, X, Y. Puro international po kasi yung reference nito. Transporting, transit, transshipment. Puro international eh. That is why I had to ask if within the Philippines covered nitong trade na to. And your answer is in the positive, Mr. President. In the affirmative, I should say.
On line 2 of page 2, Mr. President.
Page 2.
Yes, it states that transit or transshipment of strategic goods through the territory of the Philippines is covered.
Through.
Yes.
Through eh. Paro, alright, I understand your intention.
Yes.
Goods through the territory of the Philippines. Pero hindi, iba yung within.
Yes.
Iba yung through sa within, Mr. President. So, di ba? Through is different from within. So, I will probably propose to include the word within in this line at the proper time also, Mr. President. Is
Yes,
that
Mr.
acceptable to the distinguished sponsor, Mr. President?
Very much, Mr. President. We always welcome the refinements of the minority leader.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Now, going to related services as defined in this bill, it includes only those in relation to movement of strategic goods between two foreign countries under Section 5R. Will this bill include also providing related services to strategic goods between organizations, local and international?
If for as long as it would pass through the traditional ports of entry and exit of the country, then it's also covered.
Okay. Perhaps this will be covered by the proposed amendment that I said earlier. No. Para through and
Yes.
within. All right. Technical assistance, Mr. President, as defined in your bill, Section 5U, quote, can be provided by inter alia verbal communication or electronic means, end of quote. Now, will this then include, or no, will this then exclude provision of support by written or documentary means, Mr. President? Like, for example, manuals.
May take such forms as instruction training,
Hindi po kasali?
Mr. President, in line 32, it states here. and
What
may-
page po?
Page 5. Page
Alright.
5. And may take such forms as instruction, training, transmission of working knowledge and skills, or consulting services.
that includes the documentary.
So, it's primarily written or through documentation,
Yes.
but it further added verbal and electronic means, Mr. President. But we can further refine the language if the minority leader would help us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, for that. We will propose the amendment at the proper time. Again, Section 5, for weapons of mass destruction, this bill included a specific list of items. This includes A, nuclear and radiological explosive devices and their major subsystems. B, chemicals covered by Schedule 1, 2, and 3 of the biologically derived substances specifically developed, configured, adapted, or modified for the purpose of increasing their capability to produce casualties in humans or livestock, degrade equipment, or damage crops. End of quote. Will this bill be restricted to those items in the specific list, despite the definition given in the same section?
Well, the list would be developed over time by the NSC STMcom, which would conform to the internationally agreed strategic use goods, Mr. President. For example, if 10 years from now,
Hindi restricted. Hindi restricted.
they can add to the list over time, Mr. President.
And these terms are according to generic documents.
They can always change that.
Perhaps we can remedy this. My apprehension, we can remedy it by incorporating the phrase, but not limited to.
Okay.
Ano? All right.
Yes, Mr. President. I think the suggestion of the minority leader would suffice, Mr. President.
Not limited to. Yeah, that will solve that, Mr. President, I hope. All right. Section 16.
sir.
Section 16, Mr. President. Administrative appeals states that the decision on appeal is final and executory. Is this the final disposition of the matter, or is there any other available remedy in the regular courts, such as ERO, injunction, or appeal?
I believe, Mr. President, this law would be under the judicial system and therefore under the courts. So other remedies can be resorted to, but only administrative cases are specified in this particular bill, Mr. President.
So pwedeng subject ito kasi administrative appeals lang ito eh. Yung administrative decisions, I mean. We're referring to administrative decisions. So with the administrative decisions, they may file, ano?
Yes, Mr. President.
Right. Now, Section 21, Mr. President, mentions the conduct of an investigation by the STMO, Strategic Trade Management Office, for violations committed under this bill. Will there be guidelines before a person may be investigated for violations of this bill to prevent the arbitrary conduct of investigations?
Mr. President, those details could be fleshed out in the implementing rules and regulations, Mr. President.
Section 30, sir.
All right. Well, may we pick on the mind of the distinguished sponsor what he can say about the opposition of the Department of Justice to the creation of the STMO. It was on paper that they said that on the ground that the creation of a regulatory body will pose budget issues and require extensive capacity building. Ano po bang sinagot ninyo dito sa DOJ kung nasagot nyo to?
DOJ ba? Actually, Mr. President, the primary opposition came from the Department of Budget and Management.
DBM muna?
Yes.
No, kasi we saw it in the internet, ano, yung sa DOJ. Okay,
Yes.
DBM.
And their primary opposition, instinctively on the part of DBM, is the creation of another bureaucracy or additional personnel, additional plantilla positions.
It will pose budget issues, ano?
Yes.
So yung sa DOJ, ano bang grounds daw nila? Hindi nila lang nila si DBM. It was the DBM opposition that the DOJ was supporting, I think.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what can you say about that, Mr. President?
From what I understand, Mr. President, it was already resolved, and I believe So the new agency, the Strategic Trade Management Office, will be under the DTI, and therefore no new office would be created. And I believe the
Nasa bill na yun, wala pa. DTI? Okay. All right.
yes,
So it will be under the DTI, and
Yes, Mr. President.
budgetary requirements will be under their
Yes,
DTI itself. Okay. Now, the bill also provides for administrative penalties for violations under Section 22, number 3. Provides for cancellation or suspension of the registration and authorization / license to operate of a partnership, corporation, association, and other juridical entities. Can it be clarified as to who will request and who will impose the aforementioned sanctions, considering that the SEC and the DTI have general jurisdiction over the licenses of these entities?
Mr. President,
sige po.
the SEC, the DTI, or other relevant agencies, Mr. President.
Sanctions with the STL.
Yung bill kasi, yung opening statement, o opening line ng number 3, upon request by the Securities and Exchange Commission and or the DTI or any other mga order, sila po ang magsususpende. Bakit sila magre-request? Siguro,
The STMO, Mr. President, would be the one to enforce the administrative sanctions.
sila yung regulatory body. Siguro, pwede. Siguro, pero, well, again, we will try to craft a phrase that will encompass the points that you mentioned, Mr. President. Sige.
Yes, Mr. President.
We will agree to that.
Yes, Mr. President.
Just two final points, Mr. President. In the final provisions of the bill under Section 30 on the implementation or its implementing rules and regulations, it states that the non-issuance of the IRR shall not prevent the coming into force of this Act. Of course, I agree with that. Now, since the Act provides for administrative liabilities, may it be clarified what rules of procedure would be used for such administrative proceedings pending the issuance of IRR in order that we ensure due process. Baka wala pang IRR, magkakaroon ito. Ano po ang magagamit?
Well, Mr. President, ideally, the IRR should be finished before any administrative case should be investigated on. Otherwise, there won't be any rules governing such investigation. But for the time being, the NSC, STMCOM, can provide for an internal rules and procedure until such IRR would have been finished, Mr. President.
Or the rules of what public secretary.
No, we were just worried that due process will not be observed if that's the case. But we'll see to that, Mr. President. I hope the IRR is done right away. All right. One final matter, Mr. President. What do you see as challenges associated with the implementation of this bill in order to prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, Mr. President? Ano bang nakikita niyong challenges na pwedeng maharap nitong batas na ito?
Okay. The challenges would come first, primarily on the implementation, Mr. President. There will be growing pains in the enforcement of this new law, particularly those used to having these goods come in and out regularly without any hassle would now have to contend with additional layer of regulations. But again, it's for compliance to our international agreements, and hopefully if there would be a proper listing of the regular importers of such goods, then this process would be expedited and normalized in a couple of months, Mr. President. And on the other hand, on the side of the terrorists, for example, they may come up with new ways to go around this by coming up with new ingredients to these weapons of mass destruction. And until such new chemicals or equipment or ingredients are discovered and established by the international committee, then all of these goods would just come in and out undetected. So those are some of the challenges we can think of.
Innovations,
Yes, definitely.
especially by terrorist groups.
Yes.
Now, isn't it provided in the bill? Can we have something like what we did in the Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002? We had a catch-all provision allowing the Dangerous Drugs Board to include any and all new inventions or any new discoveries.
I am reluctant to include such a provision for the time being, Mr. President, because the implementing agencies may overreact and it may clog our trade, Mr. President, and it can also be used as eventually a way to extort from the importers and exporters, Mr. President.
So, baga sa nanganganay, nag-aalala kayo na baka gamitin pa na no. Well, anyway, it was just a thought. Mr. President, thank you very much. We thank the distinguished sponsor. And if given enough time, we will be preparing the proposed amendments that we would like to incorporate.
Thank
in the
you,
measure.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The Majority Leader is recognized.
So, Mr. President, there being no other senator who would wish to interpellate, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2762 under Committee Report number 140.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
So, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2482 under Committee Report number 181. This is the bill on naval architecture, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
The parliamentary status is the sponsor had delivered his sponsorship speech last July 28. I thus move that we open the period of interpellations
Period for interpellation is in order.
and that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Trillanes.
Senator Trillanes is once more recognized.
Naval architecture. A minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspended for 1 minute.
We are ready to resume, Mr. President. Senator
Session
Soto.
is resumed.
Senator Soto wishes to be recognized for a manifestation.
Senator Soto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I overlooked the matter. I thought I was going to be ready for the interpellation of these bills.
Suspend consideration of this measure and resume the interpellation tomorrow, So, with that manifestation, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2834 under Committee Report number 176.
So suspended.
Okay, so if there is no, Mr. President, there is no other matter, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, August 5, 2015.
Any objection? Hearing none. Session is adjourned until 3 p.m. of August 5, 2015.